Gutierrez, or Chino as he is fondly called, began playing the violin at the tender age of 7.
I started when I was 7 years old. My first teacher was Coke Molipata. He'd just come home from the States, so I actually started asking for the violin when I was 5. My parents didn't take it seriously because they thought it was a childish whim. So after 2 years, I was still asking for it. So they decided, well, maybe there might be something to this. So yeah, they granted my wish and enrolled me in violin classes, and it's been a wild ride ever since.
Chino took his violin lessons seriously and started practicing 3 to 6 hours every day of the week. A few years later, he won second place at the National Music Competition for Young Artists. Although he was the youngest competitor in his category at the age of 12, he bagged the first prize in the high school division of the same competition. Chino's mother Bambi tells us that despite her son's rigorous practice schedule, he was never deprived of enjoying his childhood.
I don't think he was deprived. In early childhood, we saw to it that he enjoyed the company of his peers.
His first solo recital was when he was 10 years old at the Cultural Center of the Philippines with the Metro Manila Community Orchestra. He was also a soloist with the Manila Philharmonic Orchestra as well as with the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra. After finishing first year at the Philippine Science High School, Chino was elated to learn that he was accepted at the prestigious State Academy of Music and Theater in Munich. He was to formally train under the renowned violin pedagogue Jens Ellerman. This brought him to the international arena of violin virtuosos where there are very few Filipino child prodigies. He has performed in Germany, Italy, the Czech Republic, and Israel. Bambi would accompany Chino during his violin lessons.
It helped that they allowed me to be there because I was able to do him a service, which is take down notes when he was too young.
But Chino's life in Germany wasn't a bed of roses.
When he got to Germany, that's when it got to be really expensive because even if tuition is free, living expenses are really like 1,500 euros per person. A lot of the time, I had to bring out all of my own resources because wala naman eh. So it came to the point when really we were scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Chino's father lost his job in Germany, so they all had to return to Manila. But Chino wanted to continue his studies in Germany. Chino persevered despite the difficulties.
Last year, I joined the Josef Joachim International Violin Competition in Germany. So it's a very prestigious, one of the toughest competitions to get into, let alone to win. So I was very lucky also to have been accepted from among 300 applicants, and their first Filipino. So there I made it to the second round among very tough competition.
The first round included the Bach Chaconne, Isaiah Sonata No. 6, and Joseph Joachim Romance. The second round was the Beethoven Sonata No. 1 and the Wieniawski variations on an original theme. Chino says that Wieniawski has an extremely high level of difficulty, loaded with potential technical pitfalls. His mother Bambi was in the balcony deeply praying that Chino be granted perfect notes. Her prayers were granted as Chino's bow didn't slip. His fingers landed in all the right places. He didn't forget his notes, and more importantly, he felt he didn't make a fool of himself on stage and embarrass his country. Sadly, however, he didn't make it to the finals. The jurors told him that although they were very impressed with his performance, he needed to get a better violin. He was, after all, still using a student violin, the only one he could afford.
I didn't win, but the feedback was very promising from the judges, and they said they wanted to see more of me. One of them suggested I get a better violin. So it's the same one I've been using since I was 11. Normally when you join competitions, you're looking for an instrument which is, like, for example, if you join the Olympics, you want Olympic standard equipment. So my violin isn't Olympic standard, yeah. So I'll need to upgrade it, so to speak. I have to find a sponsor for that. Well, on average, really good violins cost like $3 million, but we're looking at the lowest end of the spectrum, which is $100,000. Quite a number of factors. One of them, for example, is the projection. So my violin has only a very limited volume as compared to fine violins, which can really fill up the hall and make it pregnant with sound.
It was indeed difficult to compete with those that had the best violins in the world, courtesy of their governments and other sponsors.
When I didn't hear my name, well, it was a disappointment. But you win some, you lose some, and this is the first competition that I've joined internationally, and really in itself, it's already a great feat for a Filipino to be able to rank among the people considered worthy enough to join, that competition. So I'm not giving up hope.
Although it's been a very challenging journey for Chino, he believes that God will find a way for him to overcome these problems.
There's only so much that we can do, coming from our economy. So I guess that's one of my next steps, finding a better violin, finding someone willing to sponsor better violin.
Chino, who was once described as a Cecilica the violin, remains passionate about his music. Bambi says she feels very lucky to have Chino.
For me, it's a privilege to be there because it's like having front row seats, watching an excellent artist do his thing and not have to pay. Well, actually paid already a lot. No, that thing, it's a joy and a privilege, really.
Chino is hopeful that sometime soon, the Philippine government will come up with scholarship programs for artists like him.
I was in Beijing 2 years ago for a master class, and I was just blown away by the amount of support that they give their students. I mean, of course, they're a communist country, but they treat their musicians with so much respect. The government allots several million yuan to build them a world standard campus in the middle of Beijing. They have grand pianos in every classroom. I mean, of course, that's also a question of economic strength. I mean, we probably cannot afford grand pianos in every classroom. But it's really that show of support. They give all their students full scholarships. They send them abroad to learn from the masters. And then, of course, the students, they come back and give back to the country that nourished them. And it's also the same way I found in Germany and in the States. They have very strong government support. They're also very strong private support.
He stressed the importance of starting the training of these artists at a young age.
I believe that students, especially musicians, they have to be trained young. This is, common consensus worldwide. And how young is young? That's like 7, 12, 15 is already quite old, but you can still push it. But it's at these ages when we need to send, our talented young artists and musicians abroad to learn, and that's when we need to support them the most.
Despite the challenges, Chino looks forward to more opportunities to train and better himself. His admiration towards the great violin musicians and composers inspires him to strive harder.
Absolute favorite would have to be David Oistrakh. He was a Russian violinist during the Soviet era. And he's widely considered to be one of the three greatest violinists of the 20th century. Personally, I love him because of his tone. It speaks to you, you know. Nangungusap talaga. It's the kind of sound that gets under your skin, even when you're not paying much attention, you know. When you least expect it, he's an absolute master of that, and that's a quality that I hope to embody later on.
Barring financial constraints and logistic challenges, this brilliant young violinist may yet put the Philippines on the map of international classical violin.
I wish for the golden days to be back, you know. But I think we have young violinists like Chino, and who can bring about rebirth of, you know, that kind of era. So let's not lose hope.
So many places to visit, so many cultures to explore, and a whole lot of opportunities to widen our horizons. The world is a vast cauldron of learning, and the choice is yours. Good evening. I'm Veronica Baloy Jimenez, and this is Bridging Borders. Thank you for joining me.